It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome a football legend who's also made his mark in the world of sports media. He played in the NFL for the Phoenix Cardinals and the Washington football team from 1988 to 1998. It was his 4 years in Washington where he made his mark as a four-time Pro Bowl selection from 1994 to 1997. In his career, he appeared in 164 games and recorded 89 sacks. In 2002, he was honored as one of Washington's 70 greatest players and later inducted into the team's Ring of Fame. Today, he serves as a motivational speaker and a contributor to The Washington Post.
In the game in Washington, gets him here, and a big loss on the play of 10 yards. Bobby Hoying is going to be sacked way back to his 30. Ken Harvey was the first to get there.
We now welcome Ken Harvey to this live stream of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday and welcome into another live stream edition of Listen In with KNN Sports Talk Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. Thanks again so much to all of you who joined our first show of the year this Monday. A special thanks to you all and a special thanks to Jared Bunch for kicking it off. And now I've got another great guest joining us for our second show of the year. Washington fans, this name should ring bells. It should make you feel about the happier times in Washington. I'm bringing on a special guest, Ken Harvey, four-time Pro Bowl linebacker, former Washington Redskins, then linebacker, former All-Pro linebacker, basically a man that has done it all and is now continuing to make waves off the football field. So excited to welcome him to the show. So without further ado, please help me welcome Ken Harvey. Ken, how are you today? Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. I was looking at my highlights and missing the days when I had hair on my head. And, anyhow. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me on the show. Great intro, by the way.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming. And look, we still enjoy you, Ken, hair, no hair, whatever. We love Ken Harvey here in Washington. So it doesn't matter how we get you. We're just glad to have you. I like to do a wellness check first with my guest, Ken. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Is everything good with you and your family?
Everything's well. I mean, we've had some, COVID cases here and there, but everyone came out of it okay. And we're all on a good track. So we're doing well.
Good. I know this year has been just a whirlwind. It's like, I remember when COVID first happened, Ken, and we thought maybe a couple months, maybe even a couple weeks. And now here we are, basically, it feels like 2 years into it. And we still don't know where the end is. And it's scary because we're still living our lives differently. It's impacted sports, right? Who would have thought that this is where we would be in 2022?
Well, it's kind of it's scary. It's kind of amazing how we can't get along on the same page to help out fight a common enemy. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is really more amazing. I actually tried to write a book, my first novel, kind of dealing with a pandemic and how people will react to it. And it's amazing what people think and go in their mind. I would have never thought this. I would never thought the division. So There you go.
No, I think it's a great point because I mean, you think sometimes you hear, okay, we're in a pandemic. You would think, all right, well, everyone's going to do what needs to be done to hopefully get out of this. But instead, we've seen this division, we've seen it politicized, and now it's become a big topic, right? I mean, now you have people kind of going at it and against each other. And it's unfortunate. It really is. And now we still unfortunately have high hospitalizations, people still dying from this. And again, this is why we don't know the end that's in sight. And I think, it kind of has shown, honestly, Ken, some of the ugliness in this country, some of just the nastiness that comes out of people when we disagree on things. But I mean, I'm hoping, Ken, that sooner than later, we'll all just kind of get on the same bandwagon, play for the same team for once, and hopefully get out of it stronger together. So fingers crossed, Ken.
Yeah. Also, it's during this time, there's been some great things that have happened too.
True. Yeah.
Look at us and how we're doing this show, right? There's some people have done really well during this time, and so there's some advantages that will come from it. And just like every, I think the influenza back in the day, after that, there were a lot of advances made, after that. So you never know. Look, we went into space during all this time. So who knows what's going to happen?
It's true. You're right. We went to space. We saw Michael Strahan take off. You just don't know what's going to happen. Like you said, we've seen more live stream shows. And even you talk about us coming together. I mean, were you one of those people that was watching The Last Dance like the rest of us, Ken? Like, I remember all of us were watching and tweeting together. We just couldn't get enough of MJ and just the glory days. You kind of talk about also that kind of other side of the pandemic. It has also brought us together. And we have seen, like you said, some people kind of flourish in the midst kind of something that's so bad in this country. We have seen people grow companies from this. For instance, I was just actually this Monday, I'll be doing COVID kits with other people, combining these and giving the community. And that kind of shows you the good that's also exists in the world and people kind of trying to help each other, right?
There's a lot of good, there's tons of good, I think. And if anything, it shows that we need each other. We need the physical contact. We need to be next to each other. You can do only so much on, Zoom or whoever, live feed, right? You're going to do so much, but you only got a picture of me. You can't see the whole body. You can't see my body language. You can't see the smile. You can't see. There's so many things you can't see. So we got to touch each other and be next to each other.
It's good.
We're here. We're here,
Ken. We're here. And talking about, needing a hug and touching each other and kind of those emotions. There's a lot of emotions right now, in Washington, Ken, because many Washington fans are saying, Kelsey, Ken, what's up with the Washington football team? We're preparing for the playoffs kicking off this weekend. And once again, the Washington football team, unfortunately, is not in the playoffs, right? So last year we got a little bit of glory. We had that wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This year, Ken, outside looking in. So first, to kind of kick it off, why don't you just get your overall thoughts on the Washington football team this season? We know they finished 7-10, but again, we enter this offseason with many questions, Ken, at the quarterback position, at the linebacker position, and so much more. So how'd you feel about watching your old team this season?
Well, I mean, looking at the games, some of the games were exciting, some of the games were depressing, it was up and down roller coaster, but this was probably the best thing for the team this season. Meaning last year was kind of or the year before it was a facade. It was, we thought the team was better than what they were because they made it to the playoffs.
Right.
Defense looked good, but if you look back, you look at it, it was in a really, really weak league, and so we kind of shined in a really, really bad environment, and we thought that we were all that. Coming to this year or last year, really kind of cocky. We got the best defense in the world. We're going to destroy everybody. We don't need anything else. And then the realization is that, every NFL team, you need a strong quarterback. You do. Defense, you can't depend on one person, one or two people to beat everything. You have to work together as a team. And I think, this season kind of pushed that out. So now the team has to, can regroup and look at it and say, okay, what do we really need as opposed to looking at this dream of how great we are and all that stuff. So I think fans are just tired of it because it's the same old song for the last 20-something years.
It's true. You're talking about they're tired of it. And I'd say really tired of it, Ken, because we're thinking about the last Super Bowl that was in this town. And Ken, that was even before I was born. So now you have a whole bunch of people that live in this area that are saying, okay, we hear about the glory days, we hear about the hog days, but how do we get Washington to just being back, just being a good, respectable team that can hopefully keep making the playoffs? And I think you talk about the quarterback question. You talked about we need a strong quarterback. That's something I'd love to get your thoughts on. We know Taylor Heineke, as you said, said last year it was great. We all saw what Taylor Heineke did in that wild card game. And I think that's what many people bought onto it. This year, he kind of had to step up again. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down after like 6 attempts. And the next thing we know, he's the guy again in Washington. But, we've been through a quarterback carousel, Ken, for a long time, since 2000. How do we kind of find that guy that can be here long term?
Well, first off, you made me feel really old. You said before you were born, they won the Super Bowl.
Sorry, I'm just thinking facts.
That's okay. Well, look, so you realize, you look at the team and say, okay, well, we need a quarterback. Heineke was a good filler, and not to take anything. He's a scrappy, he's a fighter, but there's some fundamental things that he's done over and over again that you said, this is not the guy. It could be a pressure situation, and he tries to, do something that he's not as good at as he thinks he is in his mind, but he tries to squeeze a ball in, or he overthrows a ball, or he tries to throws it away. You see those, and it's not just a one-time out, it's habitual. So you kind of look at it and say, well, maybe this is not the guy. So then you look at it and you say, well, what do? Do you get and try to get in free agency and get a quarterback, a seasoned quarterback that already has some technique, that knows what he's doing, and we can work with that? Or do you go and try to get in the draft? I don't think the team – well, let me rewind the tape a little bit. Oftentimes, regardless of who you get, is how well you coach who you have. You can have a great player and not coach them well, and they never push and live up to their potential. So you have to define how good your coaches are. Can your coaches get the best out of every player? I like Ron Rivera. I think he's a good coach. I think he's going to try to get the best out of every player. I think last year was a little wake-up call that you can't. Well, not even a wake-up call. They didn't have Heineke starting, so they knew something already. So, so I think what they're going to try to do is probably get maybe a seasoned quarterback, because if you try to build up and grow in a rookie and try to build them into
it take a little bit of time.
Take a little bit of time, and is your coaching personnel good enough to bring out the best in that young guy?
Right.
With a seasoned guy who kind of know what he's doing, then your coaching has to be more pushing him to be the very best he can be with all the tools that you already know he has. And I think that would be a little bit easier with this team. So that's the direction I think they should go.
I've also said bring the veteran guy in. Like you said, if you go through the draft, it's a project, and you don't know how that project is going to go. And I think Washington's also on a ticking time clock, right? We know Washington, they have to start to turn things around. So I think you get an established veteran. It didn't work with Ryan Fitzpatrick, even though many kind of, I think, saw that coming, Ken, because they were like, he's a journeyman, he's older, and lo and behold, we saw what happened. But this market right now for some of these free agent quarterbacks, it's going to be, I think, a good time for Washington to hopefully bring that guy in that can at least be the guy for right now. You have such a talented team, young receivers, young tight end, you guys on the defense.
I think Tom Brady probably led the way with some of these older quarterbacks who have the talent, but now leaving their teams that want to go to a team that they feel they could be the man to help turn this team around to win a game. So that gives us an advantage, because Washington has some talent on this team. You start looking at it and you start breaking it down, you have some talent that could really do well. You're just missing one or two components. I'm sure we'll talk about them, but you're missing a key person here and there. And the quarterback could be one of those people. So this could be a good environment for Washington. They just may have to pay a lot, but
they got the cap space.
You got to pay the price. Yep.
Look, you got to pay the price if you want somebody good. And again, we're looking at some of these quarterbacks that should be hitting the market, and you have to be looking at some of those guys who look great here in burgundy and gold to hopefully, as you said, help turn things around. And as we talk about the gaps and holes, something else that has gotten some criticism this season has been the linebacker core. Ken, I got to ask a guy that's played that position in Washington overall what you thought of Washington linebackers this season.
Yeah, I mean, it was, look, at the end, it was subpar. It's not what you expected. There were the holes. In the beginning, there were holes all the way around. There was holes in the front four. They just weren't playing together as a team. But then as you started looking at it, you start seeing that the biggest hole was that you don't have the aggressive linebackers that are going to come up and seal the pocket, or they're not fast enough, or the new league is now you have all these scrambling quarterbacks. And so, you may have guys that can stuff it, but they're not quick enough on their feet. So for our team, we had some holes. And then you get a first-round draft pick that doesn't pan out the way you want them to. Now, I think there's hope. It's not that it's a bust. It's sometimes finding what that person is good at and then putting them in the right position. I'll give you a real quick story if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Ken, come on, you're my gosh, we want to hear this story.
When I got drafted to the Cardinals, they looked at me and they said, okay, well, you're not that big. You're 6'2", 230 pounds.
Right.
You're more of a third down cover, nickel cover guy. I was like, I'm a pass rusher. Well, you got speed. You're a cover guy. Horrible. Getting burned, getting juked all over the place. And so I had to force them to let me pass rush against their linemen every day to beat their linemen so that they could see that I was a pass rusher. Sometimes it's forcing the issue of saying, I'm going to put you in the best position that you're good at, as opposed to saying, here's where you are. And regardless of if you're good or not, we're going to put you in that position. You'll learn that position. Some guys, some guys can pick it up, but a lot of guys are so in tune with other skill sets that a good coach is going to say, okay, you know what? You're not an inside linebacker, but you're a good outside linebacker. Let's adjust that and make you an outside linebacker. And I think that goes back to what I was saying the whole time. A lot of it has to do with coaching and how well the coaches can see and perceive what the players are good at and how well they can adjust the team to fit those players.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think the coaching aspect is huge. And this is why good coaches, we talk about a lot. This is why we have the Coach of the Year honor and so on and so on. Because I think it is a part, I think it's system, but also, like you said, the coaches and what can the coach get you to do? Because if we're talking about guys that have been asked to play a different position, we can look at Landon Collins, right? And kind of how his role has had to change with the Washington football team, even though it seemed like he really didn't want it to. But again, you had to fill the gap and the void that the team needed. And so I would love to just kind of touch with you on that, in football, why that's so important and why you need to kind of be flexible, right? I think I would say to probably have longevity, I'd say, right, playing in the league. Because, this year, Ken, we saw COVID hit teams hard. We saw injuries hit teams hard, and it kind of had to be that next man up mentality. We can even look at Washington's offensive line, right, and injuries and everything that kind of hit them. So just kind of want to hear your thoughts and perspective.
Well, so it's a different league and a different world, right? When I was playing, you couldn't go down because the guy behind you was so hungry for your job that he may step in and your history, right? So guys would stay in as long as possible. Now, because of COVID, now because kind of the way the system is, injuries and all that stuff, guys will go down. And if the second guy isn't prepared to step up and be as good as the first guy, then a lot of teams, they fall short. Good teams draft because they know the second and third string need to be as strong, almost as strong or as strong as the first string, because one, they have to step up at any time. But two, in practice, the better the practice squad is, will be the better your team is on offense. If you're on defense practice squad and you go up against really good defense on practice squad, then you as an offensive player is going to be a whole lot better going into the game because you've gone up against what is close to the best. And so I think good teams have depth. And now with the way the system is, a lot of people are spending so much money on one or two players, and when they go down, it shouldn't be that far of a drop, but for a lot of teams it is.
Right. And you're seeing that, like you said, and you see when a player is gone, how that can kind of impact me. I'd say we could look right next door to Baltimore. Baltimore, unfortunately, had a lot of injuries. Yeah. We kind of saw especially how their secondary got tested with the backup guys. You can look at that game that Joe Burrow had against the Baltimore Ravens secondary. It just wasn't that same team. So like you said,
you will get tested.
They look definitely tested. Definitely tested. I want to take this question from the fans. I would love your thoughts on this. This is from JC Eagles Talk. What's up, Kelsey? Do you think free agents would want to play in Washington with Dan Snyder still being there? I send this to you, Ken, because of course, kind of the element and culture that's around the ownership. If you're on social media, you see it all the time. We know that this is a Washington football team, Ken, that has went through a lot of adversity. So we're talking about a young team with talent, but do you think like some of the noise around the team, would that be too much, you think, for a free agent to come here?
And that's a great question. It is a big question mark. You come here, and not only could it ruin your career, it could ruin your reputation being a part of that. I think everything with Snyder and all the junk and all the stuff right now, it's kind of a gamble because I think some players would think, well, he's not going to be here too much longer. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to sell a team. He's going to sell a team, or he's going to be out the picture. His wife is running the team. And so, the past is the past, and they're moving into a new direction. And they have a lot of new people on the squad or in the front office that, could do potentially well. So it could hurt getting guys to come here. But I think if someone looks at it for a longer run, I think they would say this is the opportunity to win because Rivera is pretty much running the show, whereas before, a lot of it was Snyder. And look, I always tell people, not that I'm defending any actions or whatever. But, if you had a couple of $1 billion and you can do whatever you wanted to with it, for me, I would go and make a movie. It may be the worst movie ever. I would hire the worst, the best actors, paying tons of money. And the movie may be bad just because I relied so much on the money and fulfilling my dream, as opposed to saying, I got to get good quality.
Right, the right people.
Yeah. And that's
such a good analogy. And I'm curious, Ken, what would this movie be if you had a chance to have $1 billion and make this movie?
Well, let's lead into that. So, I mean, I've written a couple of novels. I've written a couple of screenplays. My dream right now is to do. I wrote the screenplay about bowling, and it's John Amos, the father who played on Good Times. I had him in mind and wrote the whole thing based off of him in mind. And so, if I had $1 million, I would do that just to meet him, just because. I have my father. My father's a great guy, but I know for a lot of kids, especially my age, when on TV, you saw that strong father back then. It was only 1 or 2, 3 characters that had that role. Right. And so it was like, you were cheering for him every time. And so that, to me, growing up, that was kind of like, yes, I would love to meet him.
I would love to do that. Yeah, I love that. And, I want to talk about growing up in Texas. But I love that you mentioned that. So it was Good Times the favorite show, Ken, growing up?
What was that?
Was Good Times the favorite show?
I had a lot. Well, you know what? So favorite shows, because I just wrote a book about my life. I'll push it out.
We have to definitely talk about that.
But it was Good Time was one of them. But then it was Star Trek. It was The Incredible Hulk.
Good choices so far, Ken. Check. I'm with you.
And Kung Fu. The Karate.
Karate Kid. Yeah.
Those were kind of like the movies, and that kind of identified me, right? I was a kid who didn't know how to express himself, so I felt like I was this one big guy who's ready to explode, but deep down inside, I was this quiet intellect. Star Trek, I was this guy looking out at the future, trying to see anything's possible. Still do that, and and then Kung Fu was like, right. It was like control yourself, focus the pain, do what you got to do, and so that, you get kind of defined by your vision. What you see is what you start believing in, and those were some of the characters that I saw and said, that's who I'm going to be. So that's what I was working towards.
That's awesome. Look, all good choices. I'm with you on all of those. And, you touched on kind of that strong black male lead. And, some of the conversation right now, I'd say, around television is that we don't have shows like that anymore. Some of them feel like they're too stereotypical and that we're not getting those. Because to your point, I remember like My Wife and Kids, the Bernie Mac show, like D.L. Hughley, like kind of like you're kind of alluding to. Obviously love Good Times. But do you feel like we've kind of pulled away too much from that in the entertainment industry and need to kind of get back to that like core kind of, I'd say, black family? Like I know Blackish, right, was a popular show for many people that they like.
I think this is like a golden opportunity. There are a lot of black shows on TV now, and in all sorts of ways, right? And so I think this is a golden opportunity, but I think that we have to be careful that we invest in quality shows as opposed to just following the normal things that sell. Sex is going to sell, but you don't have to have a show where it's over sex. Blood, a lot of violence and blood is going to sell, but you don't have to show all that. You can talk about it and it can be a part of your show, but you don't have to show the gore. So I think we just need to go back to not recreating what everyone else has done, but try to create something that when someone watches it, they don't say, oh, that's a black show. They say that's a good show. I forgot what color. And you're seeing that with a lot of Korean movies now. Squid Games, right?
Squid Games is something that got all of us. You're right.
You start to see all these shows where at the end you forget. It's a Korean show. You forget you were subtitles or voiceovers.
You're right.
Because it was a good show. That's what we have to get to, is be creative and show good shows. So I see somebody said,
Good Times, Jefferson. All classics that we love. Don't watch those till this day when I have free time. Definitely have to cut those on. But like you said, I think you're right. It just gets to a point when you have good shows. And like you said, Squid Games was a perfect example. That captivated so many of us, and all of us wanted to watch it on Netflix. All right, I want to talk about growing up in Texas and Texas football, but I want to take this quick question from Anton Smith, who's watching. He's always enjoy the show. Kelsey, Ken, what do you think about Chase Young so far? And will he become the cornerstone of the team? I think you kind of alluded to it some, but we'd love to kind of have more of your thoughts on Chase Young. We know what he did last season, becoming Defensive Rookie Player of the Year. And then this season, I'd say he entered the season before he got injured. And some were just saying that he didn't fulfill expectations, Ken. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, some of it is like my own cockiness, right? So, so it's one thing when no one knows who you are, and and you're God, you dominate because you're a good player. You dominate because of your skill set. I mean, he's a man among boys. He was a big guy, strong, fast, a lot of moves. I mean, I watched his technique, a lot of good technique. But then the next year, teams will game plan specifically for you. They'll start triple and double teaming you. And that's when you have to test yourself to say, am I going to be good enough to get past a double team, a triple team? Now, I can't really talk because now it's a whole different game. When I played, quarterbacks would stay in the pocket. It was easier to get to them. Quarterbacks scramble and do a lot now. I think unfortunately, him getting hurt also gives you a time to sit back and kind of reframe and rethink your game. He still has the skill sets. He still has the ability and the technique. Even though he tore his ACL, I tore my ACL in Arizona before I even got here to the Washington team. So you can come back from that. It's now more of saying, okay, how can I improve my game so that if there are 2 or 3 people on me, they still won't stop me. That has to be your mindset. You have to be insulted if you get one person one-on-one. They have to pay if it's one-on-one against you. So that's the mindset you got to have. And I think he will having to sit down. The hardest thing in the world is having to sit down and see your team do well or even play without you. It tears at you. And so it puts some fire in your belly to get even that much better.
And I'd say it also impacts your teammates, right? Because I know Terry McLaurin kind of touched on like without Chase Young and how much he was a leader, not just on the football field, but off the football field, right? Kind of being that voice and a leader among men. And so I'm sure that obviously, like you said, hurts not just you, but kind of your teammates in that process, right? To kind of see your leader go down.
So this is what happens sometimes with leaders. If everyone is dependent on you, you either got to produce and it brings the team to a whole new level. But if you don't produce, then instead of even going back to just an average level where they could depend on each other, they drop below that because now all of a sudden the hero's not what they expected. And everyone now is they were expecting that. So now that player is a little bit more subpar as opposed to being, what that could be. So I think it's more about how can you as a team work together with the hero and the grunt players that get no recognition. How can you all work together for the good of the team to become, fantastic? And I think that's what they'll work on and working on it as a defense.
Washington and becoming fantastic. Those are 2 things that we definitely want to see.
It's like magnets with the polar opposite.
Right. They're going like this now. We need the magnet to go this way, Ken. All right. We need to go back around. But I think there's hopefully better times ahead. And again, many eyes will be on this off season. You talked about your book. Andy Burrow says, Ken, you said you wrote a book on your life. Take my money. Take all my money, Ken. He's excited for that book. And I'm sure something you talked about in that book was growing up in Texas. Definitely want to touch on that and what it was like growing up in Austin and how you probably had to grow up around lots of Cowboys fans, Ken.
Well, truth be told, my dad's like, who do I cheer for, my son or my team?
Which one did he choose, Ken?
He said, I'm cheer for you, but I'm rooting for the team. I'm rooting for the Cowboys. So, we grew up and, Cowboy football, Cowboys religion, right? We would not eat dinner some nights because the team lost the game and my parents would be so pissed off we wouldn't eat, right? So, that's how crazy it is. But football's king, and everyone believes and everyone wants their kids to be the next, Dallas Cowboy player. You believe in it, but that's no different than here in Washington or the way it used to be, right? It used to be everybody wanted to be a Washington Redskin player. For me, it was great. The coolest moment of my life was when I got a chance to play against the Cowboys and to get a sack. done deal, right? Now you can go back and
Life
parents
comes
all
full
proud.
circle.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's my boy and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool to go against some of the people that you grew up idolizing and to know, to look around and say, wow, I'm actually getting to play against those guys that I grew up saying I wanted to be like. I wanted to be like Too Tall Jones and Harvey Martin. And so, here I played and got a chance to pass rush just as I saw them doing.
Yeah.
So kind of cool.
I love that, like you said, and it's always great, when you see life come full circle and you get to play against them. I'm curious when you say that, you see these guys growing up and then you get to play against them. Who was kind of that first guy, Ken, that you were just kind of like, wow, I'm really playing against this guy. I can't believe it. I looked up to him growing up.
Ooh, that's a great question. Wow.
I know I stumped you. I'm sorry, Ken.
I think it wasn't a person. It was just more playing against the Cowboys, and saying, I'm here. You go to the stadium, you look around, you see the people, and you're saying, wow, I'm here. And that to me was kind of the coolest thing. And then to answer your question, like the first Pro Bowl was I took my dad and my dad and my mom and the family. And so seeing my dad become a little kid around some of his heroes.
You got all giddy, right?
It was the biggest moment of my life. I told one of the players, I was like, hey, my dad's a big fan. You mind saying hello to him? And he went up to him and he's like, Mr. Harvey, I just want to say hello to you. Dad came up, he's like, he knew my name. How do you know my name? Oh my God, he knew my name.
He saw me. He knows me.
Yeah, right? And that to me was like the greatest thrill of my life, just to see that moment. So, and it also gives you a reflection on how much people respect and care about players. Because I've been jerks at times, and I've been, whatever. You've been tired, and my son's will kick my butt every once in a while and say, Dad, for them, that may be the one moment in their life that they got a chance to meet a pro player. Don't take it for granted, because that may be the only memory they have of feeling like they've done something great, and don't just brush it away. And I was like, it makes sense, right? You got to put in perspective. So there you go.
It's true. Like you said, I think most of us kind of remember when we met kind of like that first professional athlete, or that athlete that we always wanted to meet. Like for me, I remember when I got to meet Aaron Brooks, and it was just like, wow. And I was sitting at a table with him, and wow, like I just, it's those things as a kid that it seems surreal. So like you said, it's something that you always have to put into kind of your perspective. And sometimes, even after a long day, I even think about, and when we're talking about fans and how they feel, I think about the whole situation that happened in Washington with Jalen Hurts, when the fans fell and the railing fell, and Jalen was there, to pick them back up, and then was taking pictures with them, after this horrible event happens with them. And he just talked about it. You could tell the fans just really wanted to meet Jalen. And even after that unfortunate situation, they were just glad to be by their quarterback. I think they forgot they fell and might have been hurt again. They just popped back up and like, Jalen's right there.
It's sometimes you get cynical because you think it's a different generation. Some fans are jerks. They feel entitled that they're paying money to watch the game, and they would say the cruelest, the nastiest, vile things to players, and think that they have a right to do that, which is just as wrong.
Right.
It should be mutual respect to everybody, and you understand that it's part of the game, and everybody yells and shouts and all that stuff. But some people cross the line. Most people don't. Some people do. Going back to your quick thing, the first guy I met, it was not a football player. That was that person. I was Dr. J.
Wow.
I met him and I shook his hand. I was like, oh my God, you're Dr. J. And he's like, yeah. And I wouldn't let go of his hand. He's like, I gotta go. And I was like, but you're Dr. J. He's like, I gotta go. And I was like, but you're Dr. J. He's like,
you are.
Leave me alone, man. He's like, get away from me. So you get struck. But that's a good feeling.
That's a good one. You went high with that one, Dr. J. That's something definitely that you wouldn't forget. Going back to kind of your other point about fans being jerks, we do see that. And we have begun to see some fans that have been just outrageous begin to kind of get kicked out, right, of games. I think we have seen probably this more in the NBA, but just curious, was there any time, Ken, for you where someone just really got under your skin? You were playing somewhere and a fan just really got under your skin, and it was hard to just kind of resist that urge?
Well, I've said, a few words.
Just a few.
And it's like Tyson said, everyone's a hero before they get hit. Everyone, when they're behind those barriers, you can say all the stuff you want, but you come on down on this field and let's celebrate.
And you're not a small guy, Ken.
Yeah, that was a lot meaner back then. But look, I get it, and you go to a game and you want to have a good time, and part of having a good time is yelling and talking stuff and all that stuff. Yeah, I got it, but like I said, sometimes people cross the line when they talk about your family members or they threaten, that type of stuff is just uncalled for. And I think it's that we get entitled now. Sometimes you forget that this is a privilege to go to a game, and watch a game.
Watch it,
I get a chance.
Everybody has.
Yeah, sometimes I'll reflect back and I'm like, wow, we grew up and watching a game was the furthest thing from my mind. That was only dreams and make believe, and now you have the privilege of going to it. How cool is that? So I'm not preaching, but just
we want your story. This is why I'm hogging you, Ken, for an hour to kind of hear these stories and just reminisce. And on that, we're talking about fans and kind of the process of fans. And I knew this question was going to come up, and I wanted to bring it up to you. So Andy's asking about the name and rebrand. So I would love your thoughts on this, because when you played for this team, it was the then Washington Redskins team. We of course know that team is no more. Now we've been the Washington football team for 2 seasons, and then 2022. Ken, we're going to have some new name. None of us know it. Keeping the burgundy and gold. So just curious your thoughts on that. Lots of emotions here, I think more locally than nationally, because you've played in Washington,
right.
You know this area, and fans felt really attached to the name and this team.
Well, so that's the thing. It's like there are so many great players in the history of the Redskins, and it will get forgotten. The team will hopefully the team will do a good job in transitioning and still honoring the guys of the past. But it could be, you could also get to a point where you kind of forget about the past because we're starting to try a new tradition, a new whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot will depend on what the team does to make the transition a good transition, where it's almost like running with a baton and
right.
you hand it off to the next person, but you still played your part in the race. And look, that's a great commercial, right? You still played your part in the race.
You just gave them a marketing idea.
Right, have Daryl Green running out there and he hands it off to somebody else. That's a great commercial. But that's going to be a part of it. So a lot will be on the team, because the team could easily say, you know what, the past is the past, and all that's going to be forgotten. And it will be forgotten. When I originally got drafted, it was the Phoenix Cardinals.
Right.
Nobody would care about the Phoenix Cardinals. You pull Phoenix Cardinal card, they're like, Phoenix, what? What the heck is that?
Young kids know nothing about that, Ken.
Right. It gets forgotten. And so whatever this new team and new name is, the only way the old name will stay alive as much is if the team continues to lose. But if the team starts winning, a new tradition, a new name, or whatever, it will be up to the team to honor the tradition of the past, but as well as move forward with the future. And I think they're trying to do that. So hopefully we'll see what happens. It's
a heavy task, though, like you said, because we know whatever this name's going to be, there's going to be some people that like it, Ken, some that don't. But I'm glad that
winning changes everything. If they call them the Washington Cinderellas,
it's true. If you start winning, hey, we're happy.
Everybody will walk around with slippers on, golden, glass slippers and a tutu. Just whatever the name is, as long as you're winning, people will start rooting for you. So
winning cures all. It's the best medicine in the world, folks. Don't let anybody tell you differently. It's true. But again, something that we're going to all be looking forward to. I'll get this quick question since we're talking about Washington. He wants to know, did you ever play with McNabb when he went to Washington?
No, did not. I'm older, I guess.
Just a little bit more seasoned, Ken. Just a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I'll watch some of the highlights, and it's a whole different game. The way I hit people then, I would have been kicked out the game. Now you look, it's all changed. But then once again, you're always reminded I was there. I was a dream of millions of kids, and I actually made it there. So I'm answering this question. I didn't play with them. I am a little bit older, but it was fun. It was a fun moment in life, and it gave me and my family opportunities to do things we never would have done before.
Yeah.
So, here we
Because
are.
you talked about the experience you got to give your dad, and that came from you playing football. And then here he is.
That was cool.
It's something amazing when you're able to give back to your parents who obviously gave to you. So I just love those moments. That's why for me, Ken, I love when I see these guys buying their mom and dad's houses or cars or whatever, paying off their bills, because it's like, your parents will sacrifice so much for you. And then when you get to give it back, I think that's one of the best feelings in the world.
It's cool. I've heard some horror stories too.
True, there's two sides, right, to everything.
It goes both ways, but I think the younger guys now, and the good thing is players are becoming more tech and more aware of who they are and the power that they have. And so, half the battle as a young player is learn to say no. Sometimes you may have to say no to your parents, and sometimes you might have to say no to your relatives.
Yeah, your family.
Because in the long run, you're trying to do good for everybody.
Right.
In the short run, you can give it away, and people take advantage of it. People feel like they deserve a lot of it, and to a point they do, but you got to live your world and they got to live their world. So
that's so true. And it can be hard sometimes, like you said, because, money kind of can change. I say it's not always the people that change. It's sometimes the people around you that change. Thus, the person kind of has to move and step differently, like you said. And then, all of a sudden you got money, you're the most popular person in the family. And hey, I need this, I need that. Remember when I loaned you those $2 for lunch? And it's like all these different things start to come up. So like you said, sometimes that can be the hardest thing to say no, especially when your homeboys or, homegirls, whatever, kind of start to act differently towards you.
I always kind of laugh, like in a football game, some guy will do a great play, and then he'll stand up, and the cameras will kind of pan on him, but then all his boys will come around him trying to do their poses. And it's like, dude, man, he was the one that did it, but that's kind of the life, right? Everyone, you do your thing, everyone wants to be around the winner. Everyone
for the good times, yes, right. You miss a tackle or something, your boys aren't running towards you, Ken, trying to be in the camera with you, right?
I've disappeared on a few of my boys. It's in my book.
See, this is why y'all got to get the book. We're going to make sure we touch on that before this interview is over. I actually love this question. When we look at the NFL today, who's the Ken Harvey in today's NFL?
There is no Ken Harvey.
Never will be duplicated.
No, I mean, there are a lot of good players. I mean, I think it's kind of the hybrid now. Everyone wants the fast, speedy linebacker that's strong and fast. And I think there are a lot of guys that are out there like that, just by very nature of we have so many fast quarterbacks that speed and being lighter is the big thing. When I came out, 230 was too light. They said they wanted guys 265, 270. And so I was considered small for some people, right? And so I think now there are a lot of linebackers that can do a little bit of both. They're pass rushers, but they're also good in coverage. There are a lot of linemen, big linemen that can do both, that can pass rush and that can cover, and have good hands. And so I think there's a hybrid of all that. There's no me's. There's a lot of players who play like me, but in me, I was playing like LT. We all got our generations of people who we're trying to be like.
Yeah, and LT was a great one. When we to this day look up to when we talk about great players.
No doubt.
All right, I want to go back to talking about Austin, because talking to you, it's hard to believe this, but as I believe it, Ken, you said you were a very insecure, quiet kid growing up.
Yeah.
Talking to you now, you could not tell that, Ken. So when did you feel like you kind of really found your voice? And how were you able to kind of on the football field then, Ken, kind of be a louder kind of, dominant defensive player, but yet on the outside, Ken, just a quiet, insecure kid?
Well, so you can express like quiet, and this is probably a lot of quiet, insecure kids don't know how to communicate, so they express everything in anger. And the emotion that's the closest and the easiest way, right? Anger is the easiest and the closest thing. So you'll be pushed, and then you hold it in, and then you blast out on somebody something. And that's what I did. Could have easily went down the wrong path. But football is a game where you get patted on the back for knocking somebody out.
Right, you do good.
I got a pat on the back for knocking you out. Hey man, I'm getting angry more often. And so you can use that. You can fine tune that skill set to become a good player and create some good habits. And that's what I did, was creating good habits. Now the quiet part, I was still quiet for the most part. I had, I knew how to talk. And the good thing, I went to a junior college, and my junior college coach said that every player would have to take a speech class because he didn't want anybody to get in front of the camera and not know how to talk. And in that speech class, I learned so much how to talk to the press, some of the
Yeah.
ways that they were going to talk. And so I could talk on the outside, still
Right.
have that conversation. On the inside, still kind of quiet. I think in the last few years, and especially in business and things that you have to do, you have to talk to people, you have to associate. And I went through my ups and downs of I just don't want to talk to anybody because everybody's a jerk. I had my different personalities. I had all this and that, and some things you had to learn. Probably my wife was the best teacher of teaching me how to communicate, and I'm still learning. I still got a long way to go.
Lifelong learner, right, Ken?
That's life. You learn, right? And you try.
True.
And if you stop learning, then your life becomes boring.
You're
So
right.
that's why I always kind of see, like, you see old people hanging out with kids, or young, doing things with young people, because they still want to learn and live life. You don't want to necessarily just stay in plateau, because plateauing almost like a treadmill. If you just stay, but the treadmill is moving, you're slowly moving backwards without realizing it, and sooner or later you'll fall off.
That's so true. And you should always, that's why my one golden rule is I should learn something new every day. And I mean that. And it could be the smallest thing, it can be the biggest thing, but I shouldn't be the same person today that I was.
I'm trying to give you something to learn today. What could you learn?
I'm already learning, Ken. We're talking about your life story. This is why we have so many great
good
questions for you. So many of us are learning along with you. And you talked about the junior college that you went to, right? Langley Junior College in Oakland, California. And of course, that prepared you for UC Berkeley. But something else I know you touched on, I'm sure you touched on this in your book, when you look back at high school, and I thought this was so interesting. 11th grade, right? You decided to drop out for a semester. And then you're kind of looking at different options. And the next thing you know, it was Fuddruckers, right, Ken?
Yeah.
Ended up working at. And then all of a sudden, I want to touch on this. I think it's such an important story in this. What kind of lesson would you say you kind of learned from that experience? And then essentially going back to school and ended up graduating, right? And then going to junior college.
Well, so the biggest thing was, like, when I dropped out, I kind of got to a point where I figured I had to get out to get my mind right and then go back.
Right.
There's a lot of pressures and all that stuff. It had been a book. But during that time of dropping out, everyone, to me, just, you're this big guy. I was hitting the gym all the time. I was getting big. And people were looking at me and like, who is this guy? You're too big to not be in school and not be doing something. And you just felt like a loser. And so I during that time, at that time in my life, I prayed. I got on my knees and said, God, what am I supposed to be doing? And it felt like God was saying to me, you have a purpose and a destiny for your life. Once you feel like you have a purpose and a destiny for your life, so whether it's God speaking to you, or whether your parents or whoever dig into you and tell you have a purpose for your life, and you start believing that you have a purpose and a destiny for your life, that's what kind of turned everything around. When I started believing I had a purpose and a destiny for my life, the same people that would say, well, how are you going to go to college? You dropped out of school. You don't have any money. Your parents don't have, your grades were bad. How are you going to go to school? But I believed I was going to make it to college. That was my belief. And so now you start planning based on that belief. And I think that's kind of the turning point with everything, is when you start having a belief, then you can make a difference. And a lot of times you get beat down to where you stop and you start losing. If you have a belief, you lose it, or if you don't have one, you never seek one out. And so that moment kind of changed everything around, when I was like, you know what, I'm supposed to be doing something great on this earth. I'm supposed to be here. And so when I trained, my mindset was, I'm supposed to be here. It might be midnight. Oh, I thought they were saying.
He said he could listen to you all night, even though it's midnight in Europe. He's so enjoying it.
I thought they were going to say, "Good Lord, I was good."
No, he's saying, "Talk more."
But it was just good night to you. It's just, I realized that you got to believe in something, and there are so many people who don't have a belief in something. So many kids who don't have a belief in something. So many people who don't have a vision because they've never seen one, it's never been given to them, or it's been beat out of them or beat down. And there's so much for each of us to do. We all got our own special gifts. And whether that gift is to affect one person or 100 people, we have something that we can offer and give the people in this world.
That's huge. And that's real. And like you said, I think that belief is something that you can work towards. And that's why it's so important to have that belief. And like you said, it's always trying to keep your eyes on the prize. Because like you said, unfortunately, sometimes it could be the people around you even that are trying to beat that out of you. And like you said, naysayers saying you couldn't do it. You kind of touched on this in high school, like people just saying things and you have so much noise. And it's trying to sometimes block out that noise so you can keep going towards your vision. So I love that you talked about it. And your belief took you, Ken, to one of the most prestigious colleges eventually in the entire country. So I mean, that is a testimony, I think, in itself. You know, you go.
Yeah, that was straight God. I mean, you look at that. So I'm drop out in high school. I go to junior college, play 2 years. A couple of teams are looking at me, or a couple of colleges are looking at me. But I see Berkeley. Berkeley's there. If I go to Berkeley, I'll be a junior. And I saw this other guy who was a linebacker, Harvey Nickerson, who was a senior. In my mind, coaches and scouts are going to be looking at him because he's a linebacker and he's a senior. So they have to look at me and take notice of me. Mm-hmm. So that played out there. Then Berkeley, you know, one of the top schools in the country.
Yeah.
You know, you're showing everybody like, look, it wasn't dumb. I just didn't have a direction. So now you're trying to show people. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was there as well in that area. So it all just kind of played out that this was the location.
Yeah.
You know, it worked out for me.
It worked out pretty good, Ken, because then you went on to go play on the top level of football. And now you're doing it as a businessman. You talk about motivational speaker and books. I mean, you've done so much. And that's why it goes back to, like you said, having that belief while you were at Berkeley, a first team all Pac-10, your senior season. And something I want to talk about at Berkeley, because when I told my dad I was having you on the show, he said, I had to ask you about Chuck Muncie and just your thoughts on Chuck Muncie, Ken. So I can't let you go without talking about Chuck.
You know, I mean, I don't have any.
I don't know personal, but just was it somebody that like inspired you at all? His play? I'm just curious.
You know, it was. I was just at Berkeley. I was more the guys around me, and there was a guy, Dunn Nobles, who was a running back who became one of my best friends, and you just got to see opportunity. Like Dunn Nobles is a lawyer. And for me, when I saw him going to Berkeley, and I'm saying, here's a black guy going to one of the top schools and is a smart black guy. And just like, that was amazing to me. And he'd go toe to toe with anybody. And I was like, this is great, because I didn't see that so much in Texas. You didn't see it so much on TV. So all that stuff was like, man, here I am at the University of California, Berkeley. And then my mindset was always there. I'm going to prove to them that they got a bargain picking me in the draft or picking me up on their team, as opposed to me feeling like I'm indebted to them for taking me. They should feel like they got a bargain getting me. And that was kind of my attitude then, the play back then. Let me say this real quick. So I've done all this stuff. I still do the books and have a bunch of books and have a couple of them coming out. I'm also executive director for a nonprofit called Touching Heart. So we try and teach young people about empathy, about caring, about sharing and giving. And so, you know, just trying to plant seeds. I want to do one day a video post of, you know, these are the reasons, the areas that I'm in. You know, I work with a financial institution called Fellows Financial Group. I work with the nonprofit. I write the books, but here's the reason why. Fellows Financial, I had a lot of money, lost a lot of money, you know, but what's the reason why? A lot of times people think it's X's and O's. A lot of it is emotion based. You know, if you're fearful and you don't know how to say no, and you don't know what to do, then you trust everybody, or you think someone took advantage of you, but a lot of it was the emotion based, or you're scared to make a move because of emotion.
Right.
So that's a topic, you know, the nonprofit, you plant seeds in kids, because there are a lot of seeds planted in me through good people that helped me out along the way. So you start working on that. And, you know, the writing, in my quiet world, I could create a world. I can create a surrounding or whatever. And so that is a cool thing. Plus, a lot of the children's books, once again, go back to planting the seeds. So anyhow, I'm, you know, throwing all out to you, but
no, this is good. We want to follow Ken Harvey. Ken, you have a lot of people that are watching the show. They're asking me about the book, and I wanted to. And something else you have, I know, at UC Berkeley, the Ken Harvey Award, right, which is also given annually to
kind of cool, right?
I saw when Kanoka Crawford was the recipient of this award this year. So again, I think this is back to your testimony, Ken. You go from, in high school, you just don't know, right? Like you said, you drop out a semester, you go back to school, you go to junior college, you go to Cal Berkeley, and now there's an award in your name given each year, Ken, to a football player.
Sometimes you don't realize how fortunate you are.
Yeah.
Even just saying the award, I forgot about it.
Like you got a long list of accomplishments, Ken. I have to do my homework on.
But you just kind of you're like, wow, someone thought enough about me. Or sometimes I take it for granted that your name is on the ring of fame at the stadium. You're like, wow, right. I'm doing that. Or that I got a chance, when Haiti had their major earthquake, I got a chance to fly over there and donate food to the people in Haiti. You look at it and you say, wow, I've got a chance to meet the president at one time, and I've got a chance to meet some of these people, and you're just kind of like, this is amazing. And you got to be careful to not get cynical of the world and just start looking at the small things and saying, you know what, this is actually really cool. This is a cool world. So yeah, that's me.
So when we look back and, and say we look at the life of Ken Harvey, and this might be in your book, but, what's that thing that you want people just to remember? We're talking about different generations. So when me and you are long gone from now and people talk about the great Ken Harvey, the legend, the football, what do you want them to say?
So it probably won't be football. I want them to, my goal, I want to write a play about my life, a musical.
Oh, nice. And Broadway, we're talking.
Yeah, Broadway. Look, I can't sing, dance, write music or anything, but I want to do it. And so
you might can though. Was it Tiki Barber, right? That was doing Broadway. I know one of them was doing the Broadway.
Yeah, I would write it. I don't know how much I would be in it, but it's a goal, and I'm working on it now anyhow. So it's going to happen. But I want them to say, "Wow, anything is possible." Here's this guy who was lost, and by all means could have been counted out. Yeah. But this is what he accomplished beyond that. And if someone can read that or look at that and see that, then that is cool. I've always had this vision, this would be kind of cool. Is like if you had if we get computers and all that stuff, where a kid could type in and say, you know what, I had a single parent, I live in the inner city, we make this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. And they type it in, and then it shows them someone who was successful, and it shows them their path that they can see. Someone who was just like you, got out of it, did whatever, or define what your success is. Success is not necessarily money, big house. Success could be being a good dad, loving your kids. Success could be having your wife care about you. Success could be the small things, having respect of your friends.
Right.
That to me, if I can do that, if I can have more than 10 people at my funeral, then I'm good.
Something right. That's well said. 10 genuine, caring people there, right? Just talk about the great man you were. Like you said, so much more than football. And that kind of just makes me think about kind of what we've seen in the football world. We've seen the more than an athlete hashtag. We've seen athletes kind of get more involved in social issues, Ken. So from your perspective as a retired player now, what have you thought about that? Kind of seeing more athletes kind of get, I guess, more socially cautious and socially aware, I guess, of kind of what's happening around them.
It's good. I mean, you got a platform. It's kind of a balancing act because you are playing a game and people want to get away from the world to watch the game. So it is kind of a balancing act, but you do have a platform, and so many people have used players to push their own platforms. It's time for players to take the power that they have in themselves and create what they want out of it. And I think that's what's happening now. It's just the hard thing is that, like I said, people, you want to see games as an escape. And when the truth comes into the escape, then it's kind of hard. And so we should use it. We should use that platform. But there's like I said, you got to find out what's that thin line between the balancing acts.
Yeah, and that's hard. I think that's hard. And I think that's what the NFL and so many other sports leagues are trying to kind of figure out as they begin to navigate. But for me, I love seeing athletes kind of find their voice and speak up, on things that they're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, they are human beings and they're impacted by the same things that we're all impacted by. And something you also did, I know, was go into sports writing and journalism. I wanted to get to this question from Jamel Cutler. Would you like to see more former athletes get into sports writing?
Yeah, I mean, look, well, it's, a lot of former players are smart and talented, and before it was kind of brushed off like, oh, you only play football and that's all you can do. Now you're seeing that there are guys who have the talent, and not only have the talent to write the story, but they've actually been there. So they could tell you in the locker room when you say, that person was loafing and he wasn't doing whatever, they know. It may not have been that they were loafing. It may have been that the play was called wrong and he was out of position and this person that did. There's a whole different thing to it. So yes, to that question, I think there's some talented players out there. You can't do everything, but sports will stop in that next career. It is. But I will tell you this, one guy, George Michaels, I think it's George Michael, right? From Sports Machine.
Yeah.
Long time ago, he told me, this was after I stopped playing football and I was trying to do some sportscasting afterwards. And he's like, Ken, you got out of football and immediately, you're doing this and everybody loved you because you just played football. But the next year, there's a whole nother group of superstars that just retired, just got injured, just got hurt, and they're coming out.
Right.
If you really want this job, you got to work for it. You got to bust your butt like everybody else and work for it to be the best at it. You can't just go off of because you're a former player.
Right. You can't just glide.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson. I didn't learn it then. I had to learn, but you can't glide. And I think that's what nowadays players are starting to understand more, and there are more programs to help players adjust into whatever their next thing is going to be. But there's competition, for every
real, just like on the football field, right?
Yeah. Every sportscasting job, there's 1,000 players that want to do it, and you only got one job.
Right, one job. It's very coveted. You make good money. Most of us wish we had that Tony Romo contract, but like you said, it's competitive and it's hard. But it's kind of like how you work to get your position on the football field. You have to, like you said, work to make sure that you get that position there, and not only get it, but keep that position.
Well, look at you. I mean, you're doing an amazing job with this interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I've so enjoyed talking with you, and obviously so has our listeners.
Well, it's cool. Like when I see somebody like you doing such a good job, making it easy for me, because I may blank out and you see my eyes cross. But you do something. Not everybody can do a good job. Not everybody has that talent, and some people have to really work for it. But to do it and to do it seamlessly and to do a good job, I appreciate you asking the questions and allowing me to talk. Maybe too much sometimes.
No, Ken, we want the story.
But there's just so much. Someone told me a long time ago, if you read a book, you can get 40 years of a person's life in 200 pages.
Yes.
Instead of going through those 40 years of trauma, drama, stress, whatever, however long it takes you to read that book, you can experience it. And so that's what it is. Wow.
I'm appreciating the comment. Look at you writing my comment. Great.
Look at you.
Look, you kept him up past his bedtime. He's listening past midnight. And Ken, I don't want to keep you too long. I do want to touch on NFL playoffs, but I love this question. This is actually from my mom, Ken. See, my mom is watching and supporting, much like your dad supported your career. Going back to your play, she said it would be lit. Who would play you? Curious. Who would you have play if you could pick anyone?
I don't know, but he would be super good looking. And,
all right, we got good looking. I was tall, right?
You got to be muscular, I got the beginning of the play. I just have, my parents are having a baby. There's an angel and a demon on both sides, and they're fighting over who's going to take control of his life, my life, and who's going to have the victory. And so throughout my life, those are those battles, and so that's as far as I'm got it so far. So I don't know who's going to play me.
All right, well, actors out there, hit up Ken Harvey if you want to be a part of this play. Make sure you meet the criteria, though.
Make sure you can sing, right? Yeah.
All right, Ken, I can't keep you too long from your family, but there is some big games this weekend. You are a former football player, so I have to get your thoughts on them. Let's start with the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Curious your thoughts in that game. Who do you have winning that matchup?
I mean, it's going to be a great matchup, but it seems like the Raiders are just coming on, so I'm going to go with the Raiders on that.
Oh, upsetting the Bengals. And a lot of people are riding that Bengals train right now. Ken, people like him, obviously. Joe Burrow, what Jamar Chase has done. But like you said, Raiders.
I've always wanted. If I wasn't a Cowboy, I would have wanted to be a Raider. So I got a soft spot for the Raiders.
They've got a soft spot, and playing in that new stadium wouldn't be bad either. That thing is beautiful, Ken. I don't know if you have a chance to get out there. Get out there.
That would be amazing. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure that would be amazing. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next game. We've got the Patriots taking on the Bills. This is another one I think that has people doing a little head scratch about which way this will go.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm kind of like I want to see some new blood, so I'm gonna go with the Bills on that.
Yeah, Josh Allen. All right, let's see if they can get that win. I think many people, and Bills Mafia obviously will be really, really happy. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some are saying maybe this could be an upset, much like Washington almost had Tampa on their heels last season in that wild card game.
It would be a beautiful upset. Tampa, as good as they are with Brady, his weakness is if you have a good defense that can come up the middle and get in his face, then he'll throw the ball away or throw a pick. Yeah. But you can never count him out. But I think the Eagles is so reliant on the running game, and if they get shut down, then they're kind of suspect. And so I'm gonna go with Tampa.
I love the long Tampa.
Yeah.
We had to see if we were going with Tampa. And then Tampa, of course. Do you think the Antonio Brown situation will impact Tampa at all highly with them losing a good wide receiver and Tom Brady having one less weapon, Ken?
It could. So that would then play into, the pass rushers getting in front of his face and him not having the person to go to. But he's been around for so long, he knows how to spread it around. So I think, you can never count him out. I didn't think he was going to make it to the playoffs this year. And lo and behold,
here we are
towards the Super Bowl. So, yep, there you go.
And here we are. This one might be a sensitive one in your household since there's Cowboys fans. So we got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Ken, who do you like in that matchup? You going with Jimmy G?
I can't even say Cowboys. So I'll go with the 49ers on that.
That'll make Washington fans very happy, right? He's still anti-Cowboy.
I am. My dad may be like, what are the boys saying? But I'm gonna go with the 49ers.
Sometimes you got to go against family, kid.
Yeah,
right. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, and what could be Big Ben's last game in the NFL.
I believe it will be his last game. Kansas City.
Kansas City. I love Big Ben making jokes like, I know we're 20-point underdogs. We're just going to go out there and have fun.
But you know what? It's a brilliant move, right? Because everyone's tense and they're thinking all this and that. And now you say, you know what? Play like you got nothing to lose. And people play better when you feel, you always see the team that the season is over with. They have a losing record and they'll go out and have a spectacular game because they don't care anymore.
Right.
Run is tight or whatever. So it's actually a smart move.
I mean, look what happened to the Colts. I mean, like you said, it could be those teams that sometimes you're not thinking about. Then all of a sudden you get on at the right time because they have nothing to lose. All right, going to our last game, I want to talk to you about Arizona Cardinals taking on the Los Angeles Rams, Ken.
It's going to be tough. I think.
I thought it was going to be easy for you. I thought you were going to go Cardinals for sure because you got the former Cardinal.
I've been away for so long, although I am the original, the first person ever taken in Arizona.
Yep, there you go. Look at that.
So yeah, you answered it for me. There you go. Go with the Cardinals.
Going with the Cardinals, Kyler Murray getting that win. Many saying Matthew Stafford has a lot of pressure on him, Ken, to win that game because they're saying if he doesn't, they gave up so much to get him. He's there. He's got a great roster around him. So what will he do with that roster?
Good players rise to pressure situations, and that's what hopefully you'll see.
All right, Ken, this has been so great. Before I let you go, we got some questions about the book. Can you give us details when the book's going to come out, where we can get it, and all the good stuff? So
I'm gonna try to go real quick. So I'm trying to space it out. I just wrote a new children's book called The Caregiver, and it's about by little kids who's a caregiver for an elderly person because a lot of kids have to deal with taking care of people. So that just came out. A book I wrote before is called Alone. I'm rewriting it because they had a lot of errors in it. I wasn't secure in my writing. I'm gonna put it as an ebook and I'll republish that. Then the football book about my life will probably come out around the beginning of training camp, around the beginning of the football season, because I want to tie it into football and try to push it that way. So, so look for it then. It's called Stepping Stone.
Stepping stone. All right, awesome. I'm looking forward to that. So we have a lot to, and how do you have all this time, Ken? I mean, you're doing all these different things, writing all these different books, and then you're doing business and stuff. You seems like you maximize the 24 hours that are in the day.
No, I sleep most of them. I just, the books I wrote, a lot of them have just been sitting on my computer. I'd written all this stuff and it had been sitting there. And then I had read this one quote in the Bible, it's Exodus 4:2, where God was saying to Moses, "What's in your hands?" And I started looking at it and saying, I got all this stuff that's just sitting around. I need to do something with it. So I'm just trying to do something with all the things that have been sitting around.
I like that. I was doing something with everything that's been sitting around. And so really nothing's wasted, right? Because you turn it into something.
There you
so
go.
Such a testimony. Ken Harvey, a pleasure having you on. One more for fun, Ken. If you could pick a name for the Washington football team, what would it be?
So I heard some stuff, Washington Hogs and all that stuff. Washington War Hogs, like war hogs, could be cool. Because
we lose the HTTR, Ken.
Huh?
We lose the HTTR hashtag with that, right?
Yeah, WW. Yeah.
I know you have to say it in your head.
but you have this war hog on the side of your helmet. It still kind of represents the players, with the former players being the hogs.
Yeah.
So still you can bring in the old group with the new group, and you can make this war hog just hardcore. I'm
not mad at it, but I'm like, do we have people like Oink in the stadium? Would that be our thing, Ken? Are they like Oink?
But you think about the hogettes. They used to walk around with the pig noses and all that stuff.
That's true.
It's not a far cry from where they were. Just everybody's doing it instead of a select few. So, there you go.
Look, there you go. Well, look, we all are waiting for Game 2 to 2022. Ken, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on and being an amazing guest, and hope to keep in contact and in touch. I'm sure I'll see you at another event very soon, Ken, but stay safe until then and enjoy the family.
Thank you for having me on. Really a pleasure. Hey, when as you get older and someone wants to talk to you, you get excited. So thank you.
We always want to talk to Ken Harvey. Everybody wants to talk to Ken. Thanks again so much, Ken. Have a great one.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for tuning in to Ken Harvey. Fabulous, fabulous guest. Again, Washington fans wanted to kind of relive kind of the better times in Washington, speaking with Ken on that. Also, be sure to check out his book. As you guys heard, lots of great stuff coming. Also, we're going to be excited for that screenplay. I want to thank you all so much again for tuning in. Thank you so much for all the great comments. Continue that in the comment box. So I want to see if you guys have winning this weekend. Let's just put a bet on it. Let's see which team you have coming out. And be sure to join us next week again, because we'll be back for the live stream edition of this show on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And again, of course, back next Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, getting back on track. Once again, Happy New Year to you all. Also check out our audio shows. Have a great one dropping very soon with the A7FL. If you haven't heard about that, the American 7 Football League, you're going to want to hear that one. So super excited to talk with that. And also introducing you guys to our local DC team in that one. So thanks again to everyone who helps me put the show together. I am not a one-woman team, could not do it without them. But most of all, thank you to all the listeners. If there was something in the show that you like, please be sure to share on social media using hashtag #ListenInWithKNN or hashtag LIWKNN. Until next time, bye guys. Have a great one.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM, Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.